Yo, welcome to the Black Comics universe, exclusively here on The Experience. Please help us out by hitting share and giving us a like and a follow. Then make sure to tune in for our original programming 7 days a week. Black Comics Universe streams live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on all DSPs. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Yo, I'm not wasting any time. I want to get right into it. I hope my man... If he's not here, he's on his way. Yo, yeah, there you go.
What's going on, man?
Good. We're hella excited about this episode. We're talking the Bronze Age of comics tonight. We're talking about we got two lists going on right now. I'm gonna be sharing how I originally had to plan this show planned is I was gonna share the top most valuable Black comics out of the Bronze era. So I got a top 10 list that's fairly accurate for the most part, but I'm gonna tell you, it's pretty boring when you look at this list. It's like all the typical, you know what I'm saying? It's all the typical books that you will always find on a list as far as Black superheroes go. So my list is like super vanilla. And so when I invited Marcus on for like to share his list, and I promise you, I just looked at your list, Marcus, man, your list is far more exciting. So like once I get down on my list, once I get towards the honorable mentions, it's like they might not be considered as valuable, but let me tell you, they're far more exciting. The stories behind them, the characters, everything's better once you get further down on this list. I promise you. And you'll see almost immediately that's going to be the case. I will like as soon as I hit number one. So what I'm thinking about what we can do here, because I want to make sure we get it all within this hour. I'm going to share 2 or 3 of my lists, and then we're going to share your list, and we're going to see almost immediately. This is like it's going to be divergent, man. Right? You ready, Marcus?
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
So, of course, the first one is The Tomb of Dracula. Right now, it's like extremely hot book. And just to let you guys know, I'm basing these prices off of recent sales of this book. I'm getting my data from GoCollect.com, who basically tracks recent sales on eBay and heritage auctions and things like that. And the grades on most of these books that I'm sharing, when you see these numbers, they're typically a 9.6 or better. Okay. So yeah, the first book, Tomb of Dracula, the first appearance of Blade, the Vampire Hunter, is number 1, which is on your list too, Marcus.
Yeah, but as we were talking before, I kind of excluded that purposely because I knew that was going to be on your list.
Right, of course. Because
that's one of a couple of books that we talked about that I just knew you were going to have on your list. And that should be number 1 because right now that is the top valued book with a Black character in it.
Yes. With the movie, the schedule to come out. Sadly, when you think about it, with the unfortunate passing of Chadwick Boseman, there's a ton of there's a vacuum that needs to be filled, and I think there's a ton of opportunity for Blade and Mahershala Ali to really, knock that out the park. So that book is going to get even more valuable in this, pretty soon here. So that's my
Yeah,
number one.
it's definitely a ready-made fan base for it.
Yep. So of course, number two, like I said, my list is the white bread. Yep, it's the white bread list. Giant size X-Men number one with Storm, the first appearance of Storm. And we don't, as much as, of course, it's like it's like recent sales of that book. Of course, that book is on the list. We're not necessarily a fan of that book on the list because it's just a first appearance. It's no real story compared to her solo books. I mean, this book is worth 20 times more any of her solo books are worth altogether, I guess.
And that's the funny thing is, because of the value of that book, because of her appearance in the book, it would seem like her solo issues would have a lot more value than they do, but they just don't. Her solo issues just aren't as valuable.
Right. And that's typically the case. As you'll see later on down the line, you'll see Black Panther number one to be on this list, and it's compared to the Fantastic Four book, it's not all that valuable. Or I'll put it to that this: I don't say it's not valuable. I say it's affordable. It's attainable. You can. It's not something that you got to save up a whole lot of money for. You can actually get your hands on that book. Okay.
Yeah, you need to get it.
Yeah. Number three is another, of course, book, obvious book. My list is the Captain Obvious book. Right. The first appearance of Falcon, Captain America, number 117, is the third most valuable book. Now, which is fine, which of course is the case, with the recent Disney Plus show, with him being the new Captain America and the next coming up shows. Of course, this book is on the list, and but yeah, that's where I'm going to end my white bread list for my man. And I'm gonna pull up, and what I'm gonna do is you give me your number one, and I'm gonna pull it up here on Go Collect so people see what the book looks like.
All right. Well, mine weren't so much ranked by value, but ranked by year. Since we're talking the Bronze Age, yes, I listed it by year, right. And I started my honorable mention actually came in from 1968. One of my honorable mentions came in from 1968, which was the Golden Legacy books by Fitzgerald Publishing.
Yes.
So I want to start there, but
we're gonna start with this book. Your number one was my honorable mention, and that is
Evan. Yep, Evan was my number one. Published in 1970 by Spearhead Productions.
Right. And as you can see, it's not a whole lot of information as far as this is the thing. Here's the thing about doing some of this research on some of these books is that the places where you think that will have the information, the most accurate information about the books or our history, they do not have the most accurate information at all. And this is a perfect example, right? This book is actually on my list. And I recently saw this go on eBay, a recent sale of this book for at least $900. And
yeah, I've seen the book listed as high as $1,200.
Yeah. Yep.
and it averages in that $1,000 range. And
And
the
these
thing
are
about the book is that the biggest significance is this is a solo series by a black superhero that came out in 1970. So we're talking 2 years before Luke Cage,
right.
the Hero for Hire solo series, which
That's it.
I give Luke Cage his props. He's on my list too because of his solo series. But like we're talking about Evan, and that actually would lead to I think what was number 3 on my list, the book by Tom Floyd, Black Man.
Yep.
Man came out in 1971, which once again, that's a whole year before we find Luke Cage and Hero for Hire. So,
Can you
but
we don't have to
that
share the screen anymore. I do have that on my list as my honorable mention towards the end there. It probably is. It's It is. I'm helping Cal, my producer, out here. That will be number 14. Image from 14. Yep, there you go. Yeah, like I recently saw this book popped up on another one of those books that popped up on eBay, and no sooner did it get the was it did it show up, it disappeared and when it was sold. Shout
yeah,
out
this
to
book is hard to
Black
find.
Comics. Yeah, shout out to Black Comics Lords. My man Herschel over there, he stays on top of that, and he shares that. He shares as soon as he sees a book, this book shows up. He shares a link, and no sooner than he posts it, it's gone. So, um, this is like another fairly valuable book, and like you were saying, this came out before Luke Cage, right?
Right, and one thing we discussed was how when you look at the makeup of the costume of Luke Cage,
Right.
but you look at the makeup of the costume of Black Man, you see some
Yes.
similarities and what they're adorned with, which
Yes.
the chains.
Mainly those chains around the wrist, those wristbands.
Yep,
That's a direct. It's sort of like you would. I can imagine someone seeing this and say, "Oh, that's a ripoff of Luke Cage," and in reality, no. Technically, it's the other way around.
it's the other way around.
Um.
But
So
I want to
that's
circle back to a book that you had pulled up that came in actually as my number 2, which was that Hell Rider #1. Well, it was only 2 issues of it, of Hell Rider. But
yes.
that Hell Rider #1, which came out in 1971 from Skywall Publishing.
Yeah,
And
that'll be on my screen. Yep.
the significance of that is the first appearance of our black female superhero, the Butterfly.
Black Butterfly, right? Now, was that I want? Did you know this? Was that the basis of that Shaka Khan song?
Honestly, I don't know. Maybe that's
Oh,
something that one of our viewers can help us out with.
yeah. We gotta get on top of that. Maybe somebody maybe get John Jennings on that for us. All right. So
Yeah.
so you did your 3. I shared 3 of mine. Okay. Did we get it on top 3? So yeah, your 3 was Eben, Black Man, and Hell Rider. All right.
Yep.
Let's go to my number 4. My number 4 is what is my number 4? I think it's Luke Cage. Like we said, of course, it's like this is on the list. Still a very popular book, very popular character, the legacy character. Um, and you know what? I got to move off this book pretty quickly because I just get the more I look at it, I'm getting angrier and angrier that they canceled the Ho Che Anderson book, City on Fire. So I want to I want to move on to number 5, man. Oh
Yeah, but
no, don't. But yeah, but hold on, go back. I'm sorry. But
I
again,
would
like
say
you were
that was my
saying,
number 4 too.
you notice the similarities in the costumes, not just on the wrist, but on his belt, the chains. there is no mistaking the similarities here between this character and Black Man. This is something like this is one of those like those memes. Like I was today years old. This is like I was today years old when I learned this, man. For real.
Yeah, when you look at it, especially I did an article back in 2018, and I did a picture with them side by side, and
Mm.
just the whole thing with Black Man. The title of the comic was something like the soul of the universe or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he was a character for that era,
Right.
much like they made Luke Cage a character for that era. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely believe the inspiration for Luke Cage came from Black Man.
Oh, definitely. I have no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind.
And
All right.
I had that as my number 4 as well. I believe I had that as number 4. But it might have been number 5 because I know you got this on your list as well. And it may not have a lot of value, but it's still a very valuable book. And that's
Mm.
Midnight Tales.
Yeah, Midnight Tales. We talk about this all the time. You go back to my screen here. Midnight Tales, created by Wayne Howard.
Yep. And we talk about the significance of this book as well.
Yes. The significance being is that this is one of the first artists to ever be credited, or the first artist to be credited for his creation on the cover. Uh, and he also not only did he create the book as far as the characters, the stories, the whole 9 yards. He was the artist, and he began the trend that would eventually show up in the books like uh, um, what is it? In DC Comics, their off prints, their their off prints, they would start to credit their creators for their work. Actually, what I notice is that once you get towards the end of the Bronze Era, right? This is published in 72. By the
Yep.
time you get to the 80s, um, there's a lot of these artists are starting to push back on the publishers as far as getting obtaining their rights to certain characters. So you'll see Jack Kirby, you'll see a lot of popular artists begin to um, you know you know take these publishers to court and fight for the rights for their books. And it just so happens that African American by the name of Wayne Howard was one of the first artists to actually receive that type of um, credits and acknowledgement.
Yeah. Think about it like this: if there was no Wayne Howard, who,
Right.
as we're saying, he was the first artist slash creator to be credited on the cover. If it was
Hmm.
no Wayne Howard and Charlton Comics to do this,
Hmm.
then we would still be reading on Marvel Comics Stan Lee Presents,
Yeah.
because I know I grew up thinking Stan Lee did everything in the book because he was
Hmm.
doing that was the name you saw.
That's the only name. Yep. That was the only name on the cover. So yep, there's history right here. And these are very reasonable. So you know, um, these are very reasonable price. You can find high grades of this for under $30, if not in dollar bins and stuff like that. Uh, but it's a very important book. Like if you're a black collector, if you collect black comics, I highly recommend Midnight Tales to be a part of your collection for sure. Okay, my number 5. Am I number at number 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brother Voodoo. Oh,
Now,
that gives such a bad image. Yeah, Brother Voodoo, number 5. I mean, is my number 5. Um, which is again very popular because it's going to be a part of the it's going to be brought into the MCU, allegedly brought into the MCU um, with um, with the new Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, it's surprising how long Brother Voodoo has been around Marvel. His first appearance was in 1973 with that
Mm-hmm.
Strange Tales number 169.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually ran in that Strange Tales, I believe, 4 issues
Mm-hmm.
featuring him. And all 4 of those issues are highly valued.
And yeah, and it's like what I find is very interesting is that these next crop of black superheroes that are coming into the MCU, right, that are about to get their own shows and things like that, are very popular. Blade, Monica Rambeau, Brother Voodoo. I mentioned this last in my last podcast. Um, what you'll notice, even Falcon, um, maybe with the exception of unlike Luke Cage, for instance, and Blade, these characters have very very small footprints in the actual um, comics in actual comics. So they're not like these. There are not a lot of books. There are not a lot of Brother Voodoo books out there. There's only a handful of Brother Voodoo books. There's only a handful of Blade solo books.
Yep,
There's only a handful of there's practically only literally only two solo Captain Marvel books, both of them written by Dwayne McDuffie. Um,
yep,
so these are very these are going to be very extremely popular characters with very very small print runs on their um, comics respectively, which I find very interesting. Um, so there's definitely something to consider when you're hunting these books. It's like they're not. It's not like there is a ton of Luke Cage books, for instance. There's a ton of Black Panther books. They have very long. Most of their series are extremely long, especially Black Panther. But with these next group of superheroes, very very small print runs or collections, so to speak.
yep. And that's why that Brother Voodoo comic is priced as high as it's priced because the that being not only his first appearance, but
Hmm.
the limited print run that they did on those issues. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's not like there were 100,000 of those issues out there. You
Right.
know, it's only a few out there. So if you can get your hands on one, particularly one that has a high grade, something that's 8 or above, or at least 7.5 or above, then you have something valuable.
Hmm. All right. So, which brings me to my sixth book, and then we're gonna go to your more exciting list. Um, yeah, the introduction of John Stewart, Green
Yep.
Lantern, um, and again, what I find interesting is that it's sort of like there's a running theme with some of these characters. It's sort of like every time I don't know. It's just weird. It's like you notice like our black superheroes. Not that they're not supposed to be aggressive, but they're far more aggressive than their white counterparts. It's sort of like Luke Cage. He looks like he's a hero, but he looks menacing at the same time. Like you got John Stewart. He's actually he's you know I'm not sure what he's doing to my man John. I think he might be helping him. I'm sorry, but it's just like it's something to this idea. It's sort of like we come off far more. We're there to help, but we come off far more threatening than the average superhero.
The stereotype is real, man. They made the hero so stereotypical.
Man,
So no matter who the black character was, he was always angry at something.
yeah, he
You know, and even though the anger in some cases, especially when we talk about the reality of the situation for Black folks in America, the anger is real. But you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to read comic books that you read them for the escapism. Even if they
Right.
do take reality, you want escapism. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
read the same thing you living, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm living in a situation where I'm always angry, then I don't want to read angry stuff. I want to try to find something that take me away from the anger. So why do I want to read about an angry character?
Right.
That's gonna make me even angrier.
So yeah, with
But
that,
the stereotype was real.
you had a
And,
damn
oh,
it,
good.
hey Kyle, you had a story about which book?
The Green Lantern, first John Stewart.
Yeah, what's up?
Well, we had an interview here on the Experience almost a year ago now with Neil Adams. And I don't know if either of you guys have met Neil Adams, but you ask him one question and he talks for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't much of an interview, but he was talking about this book in particular. And he said editorial wanted him to call what would become John Stewart something like Lincoln Washington. And he's
Right.
going, go out into the bullpen and ask any of the Black creators if they know anybody named like that. And they go, no, that we want to call him something like named after some presidents or something. He goes, what would you call this character if we were going to name it a white guy? And they go, I don't know, something like John Stewart. And he goes, good, that's the name, and we're done. And he walked out of the office, put it in the book, and then wouldn't let him change it.
Perfect.
And that also leads to something that you and I were talking about as far as the DC characters of the Bronze Age.
Mm-hmm.
And the value of their books. This Green Lantern book, the John Stewart book, is one of the most valuable of the DC characters.
Mm-hmm.
But out of this Bronze Age, you got characters like Black Lightning, you got Vixen. Right. Cyborg came out of the Bronze Age, as well as who else was I thinking about? It's slipping DC. But those characters, the Vixen, Vixen's book isn't, worth very much.
No,
as compared to some of the other characters and some of the Marvel characters. The Marvel characters, the Black characters that came out of the 70s from Marvel, their books seemingly hold a lot more value than their counterparts in DC. The Green Lantern book is one of the few that can at least get in those numbers of thousands of dollars in value. But the rest of them, they don't come that close.
Yeah. I mean, there's an opportunity there. They're supposed to be with the movie or animation or whatever they're supposed to be doing with Green Lantern. There's an opportunity for these books to rise in value, but you're right. Marvel outperforms when it comes to the trade market as far as the collectibles market. Marvel typically always outperforms DC for the most part. And I want to take us to your number. I think it's number 7.
All right.
No, not number 7. Your number. We skipped number 4 for you. Friday Foster.
Friday Foster came in. Yeah.
Your number 4 was Friday Foster.
Yeah, Friday Foster. I did Friday Foster number 4. I think I did Black Man as well, but this Friday Foster was published by Dell Publishing in 1972.
Okay.
And it originally was a comic book strip, but it moved from the comic book strip format into this comic book, and this is the only issue that was produced. From the book in 1972. We also got a movie in 1975 starring Pam Grier under the same name, Friday Foster. So this is the significance of this comic book, and this is what makes that comic book the collectible item that it is, because of that 1975 movie with Pam Grier.
Right.
And then Well, we talked about the Midnight Tales and we talked about Brother Voodoo, but I think another one on my list. Well, I know you don't have this one from 1973. The supernatural thrillers featuring the Living Mummy, issue number 5 from Marvel. The significance of the Living Mummy is this was the second black horror character that Marvel introduced. Blade was the first, but also the Living Mummy got its own series through the supernatural thrillers. So he was one of the first black horror characters to have his own series.
Oh, here we go.
Yep, the Living Mummy.
Well, here's
And
one
then,
of this is number 11, but yes, the Living Mummy.
And I believe it's issue number 7, which is the most valuable of the series. It has the first appearance of the Elementals, and the Elementals appeared in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Huh.
And that book, that Living Mummy, number 7, that book generally sells for in the hundreds.
Okay.
You can find a high-graded copy of it in the hundreds.
Supernatural Thrillers number 7.
Yep.
The Living Mummy.
And I was recently talking with John Jennings about this character, and the Living Mummy is a black character. A lot of people did not know that this was a black character. They just assumed that he was white. But when you read the backstory of him, it talks about him being a prince from in Egypt from 3,000 years ago. So he was right in the middle of the Black Dynasty.
Okay. And it brings us to our next book. Oh, we did Brother Voodoo. Oh, yeah, here we go. See, this is why your list is so much more exciting than mine. I'm not sure if it's going to be here.
From 1977, California Comics.
I'm not even sure.
And the title of the book is Super Bitch.
I have to Google it.
See, another reason why it's such a key collector, because this is a hard to find book. It is for mature readers, but it is the exploits of Frida Fox.
Yeah. And technically, yes, she is the first costume black superhero with a solo title.
Yep.
What year was that again?
1977.
1977, which would be let's see, I'm doing a little sleuthing here. Yes, with her own solo book. Now, Storm came out before, and I think, and when was so that's that Super Bitch, that was 1977, and then we talked about Black Butterfly. She was, when was she? She was
1971.
Okay. So,
and both Storm and the Butterfly made appearances in other books, but those books weren't their own. They weren't titled after them.
Right.
This is your first black female superhero character with her own book, with her own title. Now, like I said, it's for mature readers. So, and then when you look up when you look up the character Frida Fox and you see what her superpowers are, it's gonna.
I bet.
Yeah, it's gonna have you kind of smiling big like we are, but
yeah.
a legitimate character. She is a legitimate superhero, and she was published legitimately, so she earned her place on the list.
You know, it brings me up an interesting topic. Like my friend uh, 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 Richard Wright, we were talking about this on the show. It's sort of like when we go back into our history, we find characters like this, or we find books like this. Um, they don't necessarily always show us in the best light, so to speak. And I think what has happened with a lot of our collections, a lot of our um, legacy characters or legacy books and things like that, um, there might be a level of shame when it comes to some of these books and some of these characters, and we just steer clear of them. But in the reality, it's sort of like this is our this is the history. This is the truth of the matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
we have to embrace it because of the historical significance. Uh, you and I talked about Larry Fuller, and
yeah.
in 1975, Larry Fuller had a book that was the first of its kind
Hmm.
called White Horror Funnies
Right.
under the Full House Productions. It was a parody comic, but it was in the X-rated genre, the
Hmm.
very first of its kind.
Mm.
But this was by Larry Fuller, and then to follow it up in 1976, he published a book under the Full Home Productions called Gay Heartthrobs. This was the first book of its kind where the book highlighted the homosexual relationships. And we're talking
Hmm.
1976, and we're talking about a black comic book creator.
Yep. No, no,
He
that's significant.
he actually is considered the inventor of the genre of the X-rated comic genre because of the
Hmm.
White Horse Bunnies comic book.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's our history. It might not be Luke Cage or the Black Panther, but it's still our history. It's still our legacy in comics, and we have to embrace it, particularly now in an age where we're talking about diversity. To have a black creator do a comic book like the Gay Heartthrobs book in 1976 was big,
Hmm.
and if I'm not mistaken, Larry Fuller did it for a friend of his who
Hmm.
wanted to see this type of representation in comics back then.
You know, and it's interesting. It's sort of like it also brings us to my next book. When you got these books that that we might not want to have on the list, but they're on the list. Number 7, um, we got uh, Lois Lane. Yeah,
Yep.
this is Lois Lane number. Let's see here. No, that's your list. Lois Lane number 106. And basically in this issue, there's Superman has a machine that turns Lois Lane black for a day, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and I have nothing else to say about that. I've always wanted to read it. I haven't read this book before, and I'll be very interested in reading it. But
I think wasn't he trying to hide her out from some mobsters or something like that?
no,
Oh no, that's the Punisher story.
that's when the Punisher disguised as a black man, right?
Oh yeah,
That's
that's
when
appropriate.
Luke Cage was hiding him in the hood. It's like, yeah, it's a very interesting recurring theme. But yeah, this is a Lois Lane as a black woman. It's technically a black comic, I guess. But um But it also brings up a book that's on your list that wasn't on my list. Um, um, Superman, Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
From 1978, and to me, this is probably the most significant book out of the Bronze Age, the most significant black key collector comics out of the Bronze Age, because it there had always been a long running theme of black athletes and their comics or appearing in comics, and that actually started back in the 40s when Jackie Robinson got his first 6-issue solo series, or actually I think it was a 2-issue series from Publishers Home Weekly or something like that. But anyway, that this time, and this is something that you were bringing up, that when we look at things culturally, Muhammad Ali was on top of them. Muhammad Ali was beloved by everyone.
Right.
So it was only natural that they would take the person whom at the time was considered the greatest boxer of all time and put him up against Superman.
Yep.
And spoilers, he kicked Superman's ass.
Yep. That is true.
I guess that's why I like the book so much. But yeah, Muhammad Ali put it on him. He's like, Superman didn't even belong in the ring with him.
I guess supposedly he didn't have his powers, but still.
They took his powers away from him just so they could fight.
But we don't want to hear no excuses, man. You know what I'm saying? You step in the ring. No excuses. No excuses, man.
And it's funny when we talk about this book. When I brought it up, you was like, "Oh man!" I was like, "Nah, you can't put it on your list, man."
No, I can't put it on my list. It's you got me, because it's definitely. But this. It goes to show what we've been talking about all this time. It's like there's this monetary value, right, or what's popular, or what what others might be considered as valuable, and what's culturally significant, historically and culturally, in terms of black comics. And so you could honestly run 2 concurrent lists, top 10 lists, and you'll see like they're practically, they're totally different. They're like night and day. And like I said, like we get towards the end of this list, and you'll see immediately how significantly relevant these other books are compared to what's popular, what's mainstream. This was my number. Well, that was your number 10, or your most. Let's see what I got. Next is, where am I? Am I number 9? Nubia, Wonder Woman. Oh no, Black Panther number 1. This is the solo book by Jack Kirby. But like I said, compared to the Fantastic Four book, this is far more reasonable as far as sales go. And again, just to remind everybody, I'm basing these sales off of recent sales, data and information from places like eBay. Getting my information from websites like GoCollect.com. They do a fairly good job of tracking sales and things like that. But the research is hard. That's a whole nother post as far as trying to research this stuff, as far as finding actual monetary value for some of these books. The most popular books are always being sold and exchanged. So there's a ton of information for some of these really popular books. But when we get to books like Eben, for instance, or Super Bitch, even, it's sort of like it's really hard to find value numbers on those books because they're rarely sold. So that even if you do, like sometimes, like I do searches on eBay for some of these books, and hardly anything comes. Maybe one book or so in the last 6 months or so. Um, so it's really hard, getting this information for some of these titles.
Yeah, and then there are books like that Wonder Woman book or the Black Panther book that you brought up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the title itself was popular when it came out, but the popularity of the character of the title is not seen in the value of the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You would think that issue 1 of Black Panther, particularly because of what the Black Panther represented even back then, you would think that book would be along the lines of at least the Falcon, the Captain America Falcon book.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
with that
that's
Tomb of
deep. That's deep. And so how these gonna be check out my website, blackcomicsuniverse.com. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna post these lists on my website, and I'm gonna update them regularly. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna start tracking it, and see which of these titles actually rise or fall in value. What books might actually make it to the list that weren't on there before. I'm really interested in paying attention to that because we never know, and I want to pay attention to as we've been talking about. The more we talk about these things, the more they become a part of conversation amongst other collectors. And what we notice is that the value of some of these books start to rise, right? Like we were saying, we were talking earlier today, and we were talking about how there's several shows with us talking about Wayne Howard. I have a couple posts on my website about Wayne Howard and Midnight Tales. And now we're starting to see it in other collectors' hands. Like they're talking about these books. So don't be surprised if like some of these books start, some of these LCSs, comic book shops start pulling them out of dollar bins,
Exactly.
Start sending them to get graded even. Which is that once that information, that data's out there, what you'll see, we might see some movement on some of these books.
Well, I'll put it like this. When I wrote my article in 2018 and talked about the Black Man comic, I found that book for around $600. And this copy was like a 6.5 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that same book now listed on eBay for $12.99, almost $1,300. That same book with another copy listed below it for $500. That was a lower grade. So, in just that 3-year period, the value of that book has come up because more and more people started talking about it. It got on the radar of more and more people.
Yes, sir. We're almost out of time. We did really good, Marcus, because normally we run out of time. But I only got 2 more books. We can run through them. It's like all I got left is number 9 is Wonder Woman. That is Wonder Woman 204. That's the first appearance of Nubia, who's had several interesting origin stories. In this particular, so here's the thing. So in this particular first appearance, her origin is that she is the sister of Diana, Wonder Woman, and she was made from clay like her sister, but Nubia was made from dark clay as opposed to Diana, who was made from this white clay or something of that nature. But yeah, so that's the first appearance of Nubia.
Now, as valuable as that is, I think it's issue 206 where they actually show Nubia, because in this one the face is obscured, but then the cover issue 206 they show her. Nubia, the black woman, the black Amazon.
Right.
And that book still has lesser value than the book of her with the shield on the face.
Mm-hmm. And
Which,
you know what's interesting though? You know what's interesting too? And I'm noticing a lot, especially out of the 70s, is that around the same time, every time we bring up, there's no coincidence that I bet you somewhere around the 70s, there's a Pam Grier movie where she's scantily clad and she's fighting a whole bunch of, it's like an Amazonian type of film. Like I vaguely remember that, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm starting to realize that even for the bigger publishers, they followed some of these trends like bondage. Like we talk about like we talk about our boy Matt Baker. But the
yeah,
covers that he was drawing were typically all, bondage covers, so to speak. Wonder Woman had a lot of bondage covers, right? This scene looks like I'm fairly certain there's a Pam Grier movie that looks similar to this, and there's no coincidence that they brought a sister into this, and created this scene on this cover. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna find that movie. And then that brings us to my last. I think it's my last book. My number 10. Yeah. Which is actually, I think, is going to get more gain. It's going to gain some momentum if he ever makes an appearance in the MCU. The first appearance of the Prowler. And this is a personal favorite of mine because as you can see, I got the bobblehead. That's one of my favorite black characters, anti-hero, I guess you could call it.
He holds significance. He holds significance in the Black history of comics because he is one of the first mainstream villains.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing about Spider-Man. One thing that the Spider-Man series as a whole was known for, and that was introducing Black characters in a non-stereotypical way. Because we look at what's his name, Frank Robinson. Frank Robinson was the assistant editor of the big newspaper, and one of the secretaries in this big newspaper was a Black woman. So they started out with Blacks in non-stereotypical roles in comic books. So for them to introduce, which is Frank Robinson's son as this villain, goes right along with what was happening in the book,
right?
Which was breaking that stereotype of Black characters in comics. So I give Spider-Man a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, for sure. Now that was my top 10, and then we went over. I think we covered everything. You had we talked about Golden Legacy. That was 1968. Technically 1968. I guess that's a Silver Age book, but that counts. We talked about White Horror Funnies, Gay Heartthrobs. Also, my last honorable mention that again didn't get to share is Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. My girl Monica Rambeau. I think this book is going to gain some momentum too. So I would pay attention to my website, Black Comics Universe. I'm going to be paying attention to these books, along with the books that my man Marcus Roberts mentioned. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to make it real snazzy. It'll be up on our website. It's like that, and if I made any mistakes, for sure, if you guys see, something I might have missed or that we might have missed and a book we didn't mention, please hit me up. You can find me on all social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, yeah, you can follow us on Facebook at Black Comics Universe. You can follow me on Instagram at Black Comics Universe. So if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, concerns, please reach out. Check out my man Marcus Roberts, Second Sight Publishing. He's doing big things over there. He's on social media as well. If you ever have a historical Black comic book, historical, especially dealing with horror, as far as horror comics, hit my man Marcus Roberts up. The dude is
hit me up, always available.
Yeah. Always. Appreciate you, man. And with that, we're going to be signing off. Thank you, guys, and good night.